first comment that frankly I found outrageous was that this bill was brought as a result of minority candidates being elected across the state. This bill was brought because we have district attorneys and prosecutors who aren't doing their job. I told y'all last time this bill was on the House floor, House Bill 231, about the district attorney in the Western Judicial Circuit and the issues that we've had in Athens, Clarke County, and Oconee County. Well, since then, just a couple weeks ago, there have been more issues brought forward about our district attorney.
As the session winds down, the House passes SB 92, a controversial bill to create a committee to monitor the actions of prosecuting attorneys. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers on this day 39, the last legislative day until Sine Die on Wednesday. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. We will explore much of what happened today throughout the show. A couple of lawmakers will join us from the Gold Dome as the busy day continues. We'll look at a few pieces of legislation that appeared dead for this session but have been resurrected in other bills. One of them is to help with compensation for people who are wrongly accused of crimes. But first, on this busy day at the Gold Dome, we go to Capitol correspondent Rochelle Ritchie for a wrap-up. Hi, Rochelle.
Hi, Donna. Well, we are almost at the finish line. In the House today, a lengthy hour-long debate over ordinances and policies that would prohibit public sleeping and camping. And in the Senate, there were 68 bills, but a little bit of drama as after lunch as they decided to stall those bills due to their frustration with the House. On the next to last day of the session, it's a mad dash to get as many bills passed as possible. In the Senate, 68 bills on the rules calendar. Of note, HB 227 defines what constitutes critical infrastructure.
That will include water systems, sewage, drainage, energy, the electric grid, natural gas, telecommunications, internet, public transportation systems, all of these public services.
And will increase penalties for those who may target and damage it.
We have in the last few years seen a dramatic increase in attacks on power substations and other public services like this that harm all of us, large groups of people at the time. So this makes it clear what are vital public services. It also includes electronic means if you're hacking into these systems rather than just a physical attack. And the trigger is that it increases the minimum punishment from 1 year to 2 years and the maximum punishment from 10 years to 20 years.
That bill passed 52-1. And House Bill 121, which would confine wakeboarding and wake surfing to certain areas of a lake.
The problem is the large wakes that are being created are causing property damages, is causing damages to boats, is causing damages and safety issues, and it's causing some advanced erosion issues in the lakes around our state. So this is, as I said, it's a fun sport. So what 121 does is simply fix the problem by creating a 200-foot setback from the lake shore or the appurtenance or docks that you have to keep if you're involved in that activity and you're pulling someone doing one of those two activities, that you have to stay 200 feet off of that line.
As well as let side-by-side all-terrain vehicles get licensed.
If you have one of these and you don't necessarily want to drive on county roads, you don't have to register, you don't have to get a tag. But if you do, and you want to drive on county roads or you want to cross state lines, this legislation simply enables you to go get a license plate for your vehicle and drive it and use it in more ways than folks currently can that own these.
That bill passed 51-2. After a lunch break,
I move that we table the remaining bills on the rule calendar.
Majority Leader has moved that we table the remaining bills. The Senate's working hard, and I'm just wondering how much harder we need to work.
The Senate expressing their ongoing frustration by what they claim is the lack of Senate bills being passed in the House, but eventually took up more House bills throughout the afternoon. The House took up the controversial bill, SB 62, which establishes local ordinances or policies that prohibit public camping or sleeping, essentially by people who are homeless, and it was a lengthy hour-long debate.
Street camps are dangerous for the people. The cities that have allowed it have seen increases in the number of homeless deaths and violence against those people who are searching for a better, safer place to be every single night.
Democrats calling the issue of housing insecurity a humanitarian issue, not a criminal one.
Homeless people are people. They are human beings. They are not trash. They are not invisible. They are someone's mom, someone's daughter, someone's uncle, someone that someone cared about.
There's a lot that we can do from this body to address homelessness. Wages, landlord-tenant policies that haven't made their way all the way across to the governor's desk. We've got things that we can do that nobody else can do. DAs can't do it, city councils can't do it, county commissions can't do it. Let's stop trying to do their job and do ours.
Representative Omari Crawford telling the chamber the bill punishes local governments.
This bill sets up a path to punish local governments that don't enforce penalties against temporary habitation, better known as homelessness.
Republicans saying while concerns from Democrats are valid, it's not a true reflection of the bill's main intent.
It's just saying that if you're local governments need to enforce the laws that they have on the books. It's that simple. Is if you have an ordinance or local ordinances that are on your books, you have to enforce the laws that you pass.
And this bill doesn't have every single answer, but it's a start. To me, that's compassion.
The bill passed 99 to 76. Also in the House, correctional facility employees and contractors could face stiffer penalties after the passage of Senate Bill 159.
If you're a contractor or an employee of the Georgia Department of Corrections and you bring illegal contraband to give to an inmate, that the penalty goes from 2 to 10 years, and it does not have the restriction to probate, so there is no mandatory minimum in here, but it does raise the sentence to 10 years.
Democrats calling the bill vengeful.
These measures better reflect vengeance. When you look at SB 159, lines 61 through 63, it's a testament to how far off we are. In lines 61 through 63 of SB 159, it says that if a prison employee hands someone incarcerated a cigarette, if they just give them a cigarette, they will go to prison not for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, but for 10 years for handing someone a cigarette.
The bill passed 103 to 72.
And day 39 is not over just yet, Donna. Both chambers are expected to convene again at 7:30. That is my Capitol report. I'm going to send it back to you.
Yeah, we'll see how long the night goes. Thanks, Rochelle. We want to cover a lot on this last legislative day before sine die on Wednesday. And joining me in the studio for analysis is WABE's politics reporter, Rahul Bali, who once served as a Capitol correspondent on this show. He also helped produce this show for many years, so welcome back.
Great to be on.
Well, I'm glad you call it home because we like having you here. Let's talk about one bill that's still out there. It's the voucher bill, and people are still paying a lot of attention to it. What have you heard?
So the important development that we've had this afternoon is Governor Kemp has now publicly thrown his support. You know, last week you had one of his floor leaders, Will Wade, say the governor supports this. But the governor appeared on a radio show here in Atlanta this afternoon saying, I support what the Senate passed. Let's get it across the finish line. Very reminiscent to last year when here at the end of last year's session, you had the governor start speaking about transgender kids playing in girls' sports. Now you've got, again, the governor stepping in and saying, hey, this is something I want seen passed.
And this is the Promise Scholarship. That's what it's called. It's about $6,000 that will follow the child, as they say.
Yep.
Okay. Right now, because of so much happening at the Capitol, we will have lawmakers joining us live from the Gold Dome. And first is Republican Representative Josh Bonner of Peachtree City. He's chairman of the House Committee on Defense and Veterans Affairs. Welcome to Lawmakers.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Well, good evening to you. I want to start by first asking you about bills related to veterans. What can you tell us about legislation coming out of this session? Anything?
Well, we've been very fortunate this year to do a good bit for veterans. We've been trying to increase the activity of the Department of Veteran Services. They were awarded some funds to do some mental health grants, and then we also are making some changes to their Veteran Services Board so that they can raise some funds on their nonprofit wing of that department, and so again can turn and give those out as grants. We're also trying to expedite the licensing of military spouses that move into the state of Georgia and those active duty service members that transition to civilian life, and reducing that expedited licensure from 90 down to 30 days. And that will certainly be a big help for those that are moving into Georgia.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are looking at that bill in particular. Let's change topics to your title pawn bill, HB 342, Motor Vehicle Title Loan Act. So tell us a little bit about it.
So House Bill 342 seeks to do three things. It seeks to bring the title pawn industry up underneath the Department of Banking and Finance. And it also seeks to make that industry subject to Georgia's usury laws. And then it also requires that they adhere to a surplus of funds, wherein if they repossess a vehicle and they sell it for more than what is owed on the vehicle, then they would return that surplus to the original owner.
Yeah, I know it didn't pass before crossover day, but are you still hopeful about it?
We are. We've got a number of signatures on the bill. I think we're above somewhere north of 50 signatures right now, and that's House Democrats and Republicans, so it's a bipartisan effort, and we're going to be working with the folks in that industry and other folks in the interim so that when we come back next session that the bill is still active and we'll be able to move it forward and hopefully get it into law.
Oh, Chairman Bonner, it's always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. Raul, he talked about some things that people care about, certainly veterans issues, and with the title pawns, we'll see what happens with that. But I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about something else that happened today, and that dealt with the DAs and the Oversight Commission. We saw it pass in the House, but there's still work on that one. Yeah, it's going to have to go back to the Senate.
It does have to go back to the Senate, and there's still a couple of discussion points. Who should be on that committee? In the Oversight Committee overseeing prosecutors? That's one of the questions. Who makes those appointments? Should that be maybe the governor? Should that be the lieutenant governor and the speaker, like you see with some commissions? Or should it be the members of the Georgia Supreme Court? So still some things that have to be worked out, but it looks like this kind of legislation is eventually going to get done.
Yeah, it's something that, it was controversial. There was a lot of debate today. There was a lot of debate when it was in the Senate. Then if it's going to go back, there's going to be a lot of talk of this. It's really going to change the way some things are done in Georgia's local jurisdictions when it comes to the DA's office.
The implementation is going to be very interesting in this because there's even splits among the district attorneys themselves. The organization that lobbies on behalf of them didn't take a position on this because you had different positions. You had Fonnie Willis come down there and oppose it. You had other DAs come there and support it. So the implementation is probably going to be the most interesting thing if this does get passed and signed by the governor.
Okay. Well, we're going to switch gears again. We want to return to the Capitol. And joining us now is Democratic Representative Esther Panich of Sandy Springs. Welcome to Lawmakers.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us the latest on your bill to define anti-Semitism.
So right now we are waiting to see if it's called to the Senate floor for a vote of the whole floor and of the whole Senate. And if not today, then it's possible it will be called up Wednesday. But we're running out of time, so we're hoping it's called tonight.
I want to bring to your attention a wide-ranging group of opponents to the bill spoke at the state capitol today at a press conference. It was sponsored by CARE Georgia, the Council on American Islamic Relations, and I want you to listen to a little of what they discussed.
HB 144 is an attempt to codify the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, what that definition also includes is 11 examples of manifestations that anti-Semitism can take. And a lot of those infringe upon Georgians' First Amendment rights to free speech.
I want to be perfectly clear that anti-Semitism is absolutely on the rise in our country. There's no doubt about that. There is no arguing that. And as somebody who has personally faced death threats for her religion and ethnicity, I fully appreciate, understand understand and endorse the need for this bill. The issue that's happening right now is the language of this bill, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be amendable to address some concerns people have about the implications on free speech. And what we mean by that is, unfortunately, the definition that is referenced, which is not in the bill, it's actually just referenced, you have to go look it up, actually includes examples that are political, frankly. And as a Palestinian, and that is the reality of who I am a Palestinian, that concerns me, because at the end of the day, I would really hate for this to be, and it has become a wedge issue between myself and my counterparts who are working to create a more just world.
So Representative Panich, your response to the feelings about this bill causing problems with free speech?
Well, unfortunately, the opposition has made a big deal about free speech when this has nothing to do with speech. It is not a speech code, and if you simply read the bill, you will see that in the bill and the reference that it talks about, it says, this has nothing to do with criticism of Israel, and this has nothing to do with free speech. This definition only comes into play after a crime or unlawful discrimination, neither of which is protected by the First Amendment. This is to discern the intent with which somebody committed a crime. Was it based on anti-Semitism or unlawful discrimination? For example, if somebody has a swastika in their Facebook and talks negatively about Jews and then attacks a Jew, then yes, a prosecutor can say, oh, well, maybe he acted with anti-Semitic intent. The challenge is a lot of people don't know what anti-Semitism is, so that's why you need a definition. And the reason Israel is included is because American Jews are being attacked because of what is happening in Israel. So we all know what conventional anti-Semitism looks like, swastikas, but we don't know what the contemporary anti-Semitism looks like, which is attacking Jews because what is happening in Israel. Every time there's a flare-up, you see Jews being attacked and Israel being blamed, Zionists being blamed. But really, they're attacking Jews. So people are looking for cover to attack Jews in the name of Israel. And that's what this is trying to prevent. The only people who are upset about this bill are people who do not believe that Israel has a right to exist. They have no problem with Muslim countries existing or Christian countries existing, but just Israel. That's a problem.
So right now you think that possibly Wednesday you might see some action on this. You're still hopeful?
I'm hoping tonight, but yes, it's possible Wednesday, and then it would have to go back to the House because there was an amendment in the Senate committee, and it would be an agree or disagree in the House.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll keep up with what's happening with your bill.
Thank you.
Coming up, we'll talk more of what happened today and what to expect on Sine Die. Plus, what some lawmakers say are the most personal bills they sponsor, those dealing with people wrongly accused.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.
Whichever way I turn, there's a trap. Let's set this palace on fire.
She's to be married. She is not married yet.
It's never a burden to love or give. The mother is at the heart of everything we do.
These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport. Support your PBS station and stream more with Passport on the PBS app.
Community. Learning, working, playing, celebrating. Doing life is always better together. At GPB, we aim to provide you with the tools to be able to do life together well. Our mission to educate, inform, and entertain inspires everything from our wide range of programming to our stimulating radio conversations to our fun in-person events. We've got something for everyone. Visit gpb.org/community to learn more about our upcoming events.
We care about things that affect the lives of every American.
We are there at the front lines
to get to the heart of what really matters in every issue.
This country has not seen this in 80 years.
This extraordinary moment in American history.
You're making such a huge impact.
Trust is at the heart of what we do.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. WABE's politics reporter Rahul Bali continues with the show as we look at some of the issues on this final day before sine die on Wednesday. 4 bills passed out of the House, but didn't look like they would make it to the Senate floor. They dealt with compensation for 4 people who had been wrongly accused of crimes. They have been exonerated and are now seeking compensation.
This is the most personal legislation we ever do. When we're up here we're representing hundreds or thousands of people when we vote on bills. This is a one-on-one, very intimate, very, very, very stressful and very gut-wrenching, to use a not so pleasant term, because you don't want to fail them. They've been failed by the system already, and you don't want to be the one to fail them again.
For these lawmakers, the bills are personal because each legislation represents one person. For Representative Penny Houston, it's Devonia Inman, exonerated after 23 years.
There was a lady that worked at Taco Bell who was murdered, and he was charged in the murder. They had some evidence was withheld by the DA. DNA proved finally that he was not the person. They disregarded the DNA later on. And supposedly one of the law enforcement people lied at the trial.
For Representative Debbie Buckner, it's Terry L. Tilley of Troup County who spent 40 years in prison before exoneration.
They not only were exonerated, which is an extremely difficult process, and they have been released from being in prison, and they are now just trying to get a way to get themselves back on their feet and start their life.
For Representative Stacey Evans, it's 2 Atlanta men wrongly incarcerated for 18 years. Under the current system, each exonerated person must find a legislator to sponsor a bill to get them compensation.
These are individuals who were innocent, but unfortunately were convicted through the criminal justice system. It's really important to compensate these individuals. They lost out on time with their loved ones. They lost out on their liberty, which was taken away from them. They lost out on being able to invest in their careers. They lost out on being able to save for retirement, contribute to Social Security, contribute to Medicare. There are many, many compelling reasons why we need to compensate individuals who, through no fault of their own, were convicted and then spent time incarcerated.
Then the long process of getting approved for compensation, finding a lawmaker to sponsor them, and then
I get involved, go through subcommittee in the House, committee in the House, Rules Committee in the House, floor on the House, and then I go over to the Senate to start over again, have one subcommittee meeting for appropriations, have a second subcommittee meeting.
Holcomb's bill, HB 364, would create an independent group, the Wrongful Conviction Compensation Review Panel.
Not just an independent group, but an independent group of experts, former judge, district attorney, defense lawyers, and individuals that have expertise with DNA evidence. Almost all of the exonerees have come through retesting of evidence and DNA. There have been advances in DNA technology over the last couple of decades, and so the members of this panel would have expertise to be able to make these judgments and decide that these individuals were truly innocent. That's who we want to compensate, the truly innocent, not those who might be exonerated or freed because of a technicality or something like that. That's not who we're trying to help. We're trying to help people who were truly innocent but unfortunately were convicted.
House Bill 364 is so important because it sets up a process that's out of here, not subject to this artificial 40-day timeline that we have over here, to get real justice for these individuals.
I'm just a representative just trying to get what's right, a little justice around here. And I hate, everybody doesn't have a voice, and I felt like I was the voice for people who don't have a voice.
Now, Representative Holcomb's bill HB 364 to create the Wrongful Conviction Compensation Review Panel is now Senate Bill 35. It was originally a bill to create a license plate for Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. I asked Senator Nikki Merritt, who sponsored the fraternity license plate bill, what she thought, and she said she believes that the Wrongful Conviction Panel is a good bill because it holds the government accountable when mistakes are made. She did add that adding it onto bills like hers has its problems, and it bypasses the checks and balances of the legislative process. Her original bill has been added to HB 175, which is an omnibus bill for several license plates. So it's just kind of crazy the way these things will move around.
You know, and we saw this last week with online sports betting, and it was just true frustration from State Representative Lisa Hagan, who had a soapbox derby bill, and it suddenly became a game, and you could just see it on her face, and eventually just like, take my bill out, please.
That's it. So let's, in the final moments, talk about a few things. Medical cannabis, where does that stand now? This is something that we've been trying to get through for a while, some of the lawmakers.
It's been something we've been following dating back to 2015, and that product, low THC oil, is still not in the hands of those who need it. Let me explain where the program is now. There are 2 licensees that are currently in production producing low THC oil right now. They think they'll get to market by May and June. You have another 4 that are tied up in court. So what's going on in the legislatures? How do you deal with those 4? Is it arbitration? Is it the state business court? Or is it just give them a license and just get on with it, as some people say? The interesting that did pass, there was legislation passed today, House Bill 196. One interesting thing in there are some triggers related to the number of patients who are on the registry and then how much low THC oil, medical cannabis oil, can be produced, because there's now concern that there's going to be too much produced, with right now currently only 26,000 people on the wait list. So that's one of the interesting things that has popped up here in recent hearings.
Wow, it's amazing how long it's taken to even get this far. Let's talk about something else, and that is the mental health bill. Of course, this is a legacy of the late Speaker, David Ralston, and the current Speaker, John Burns, really wants to see something happen to continue the efforts begun last year.
There are a number of things in this bill, and I try to always come back to the issues. Remember last year, mental health parity was about giving coverage for mental health and substance abuse issues, same as physical health. One of the top issues that they're dealing with this year is you and I could have great coverage for that, but if there are no providers, what does that mean for us? So those are the 2 of the things. That's one of the things looked at, along with in-care, critical care beds. So those are 2 things being looked at. The people at the state capitol behind this legislation are still hopeful, but they're starting to get more and more concerned that their bill is part of this grander horse trading that's happening here at the end of the session.
And what we're seeing is things going back and forth, so it's hard to really know where things stand on a lot of bills right now.
Yeah, there's a lot we're trying to figure out what's going on, especially, I think, with that bill, for example, and with medical cannabis oil, is just trying to figure out what's the bill to follow. You know, the great thing, a couple of times tonight we've mentioned different bill numbers on the same issue, whether it's anti-Semitism or that bill, because we're dealing with bills moving around. You know, the funniest thing is, hey, Raul, you need to go watch this bill number, because that's where my bill is going to suddenly appear. So that's what's happening down at the state capitol. I think the big thing we're watching for is what may not make it, because they just flatly run out of time.
Right. So they're supposed to get, when we finish this show at 7:30, excuse me, they're supposed to get back into action. We don't know how long they'll go tonight. And then there's tomorrow to do some things, try to get together, and then Wednesday. Sine die.
And there's a budget that still needs to be finished.
There's a budget. That's another big thing that they have to do.
It's only $32 billion.
Oh, okay. Just a little bit of money here or there. Well, thank you as always for coming on the show. That does it for Lawmakers Today. We'll be back on Wednesday for our special 1-hour Sine Die show. We'll be live for all the action under the Gold Dome on the final day of the 2023 General Assembly. Good night.